This is CBN NewsWatch.
It is Wednesday, February 12th. I'm Ephraim Graham. Thank you so much for joining us. Ahead today, a surprisingly close race in New Hampshire as Bernie Sanders barely wins over Pete Buttigieg with a surprise candidate in third place. And bad news for Senator Elizabeth Warren and former Vice President Joe Biden. They're the internet's dirty dozen, big-name businesses with ties to porn producers and sex traffickers. The number of illegal crossings at the U.S. southern border with Mexico has plunged a whopping 90% over the last year. We're going to bring you a report from Central America and explain why. And Tim Tebow's annual Night to Shine, the special event for children with special needs where they get to be kings and queens for the evening. All those stories and much more are ahead in this edition of CBN Newswatch. We begin this half hour in New Hampshire where socialist Bernie Sanders won a close victory over former South Bend, Indiana Mayor Pete Buttigieg with 87% of the vote in. Sanders had 25.7%, while Buttigieg was just a few thousand votes behind with 24.4%. Minnesota Senator Amy Klobuchar had a strong third-place finish with just under 20%. And Senator Elizabeth Warren finished a distant fourth with 9%, with former Vice President Joe Biden all the way back in fifth at just 8%. The top three finishers all had jubilant messages for their supporters.
Victory here is the beginning of the end for Donald Trump.
A campaign that some said shouldn't be here at all has shown that we are here to stay.
Donald Trump's worst nightmare is that the people in the middle, the people who have had enough of the name calling and the mudslinging, have someone to vote for in November.
It was clearly a disappointing night for Elizabeth Warren, who's from neighboring Massachusetts, while Joe Biden canceled a primary appearance and left New Hampshire before the results were even in, heading to South Carolina, where he hopes for a win to get his campaign back on track.
All right, come from, that's the opening bell, not the closing bell. Constituency of the Democratic.
But Biden could face a more difficult battle than he had expected in the Palmetto State after his two-week finishes in the first two contests. And in future races, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg could have a serious impact. But Bloomberg is now under fire for comments that have resurfaced about his stop-and-frisk policy. Bloomberg is heard on tape saying the way to bring down murder rates is to, quote, put a lot of cops in minority neighborhoods because that's where, quote, all the crime is. I want to turn now to the coronavirus outbreak. The latest figures show the death toll rising yet again, now more than 1,100. But China's National Health Commission said just over 2,000 new cases were reported over the previous 24 hours, declining for the second day. The total number is now just under 45,000, although many experts say a large number of others who have been infected have not been counted. And the World Health Organization has given the coronavirus a name, COVID-19. The internet and social media have been called many things, but remember, money is at its bottom line. From Google and YouTube to Amazon and Facebook, there's a good chance you have spent money involving these digital giants. As CBN's Paul Strand now reports, you probably don't realize all these businesses have ties to pornography producers or sex traffickers.
Pornography to you may be just a dirty little secret, but actually some of the biggest corporations in America have connections to the pornography industry. In an attempt to pull back the curtains and shame them, the National Center on Sexual Exploitation releases its Dirty Dozen list each year. The 2020 version includes such famous names as Amazon, Google, Visa, and the widely used Twitter.
Most of us are on it. Unfortunately, they allow pornography on their site, and they're actually, because of that, facilitating sex trafficking accounts and prostitution accounts, often using pornography to advertise for the sale of real people offline.
Don Hawkins, the center's vice president, says Visa processes the payments of mainstream porn websites.
A number of these pornography websites that Visa partners with have videos of sex-trafficked women and children and videos uploaded of documenting child sexual abuse.
Now, Visa does have a choice in this. Even just this last year, PayPal stopped processing money for the pornography industry. So we're calling on Visa to follow their example.
Visa replied to the charges in a statement saying, "We categorically prohibit transactions involving child pornography and human trafficking." The group also blasts Wyndham Hotels and Resorts as the last national chain still offering on-demand hardcore porn to hotel guests, And that's not all.
If you go on Google or online and you Google the words prostitution in Windham, you'll find several hundred complaints and allegations and lawsuits and criminal prosecutions against Windham for allowing sex trafficking to happen on their premises involving children.
McNamara says Google hasn't stopped pedophiles creeping around on YouTube, and that's just one of many problems.
Google Images often features hardcore pornography on the first page of results, even for scientific or basic search terms.
Hawkins says such mainstream corporations should be ashamed because porn producers and sex traffickers do great evil.
They make their profits off the backs of countless vulnerable and exploited and abused individuals.
So as long as major corporations continue to have ties to the pornography industry, the Dirty Dozen list is going to keep coming out every year. Paul Strand, CBN News, Washington.
Another issue, survivors of sex trafficking often still face a criminal record, preventing them from reclaiming their lives. Now, a nationwide effort to help clear these records just received new momentum. And as Heather Sells reports, it's come from a group of high school students.
At one high school in Virginia, students are literally fighting for the survivors of trafficking. They want their criminal records cleared in a process known as expungement. For several years now, Matthew Ployd has made sure his government students receive a practical civics lesson.
So thank y'all for participating and being here. I'm so excited.
It all started when Ployd met Monica Charleston and invited her to share her story with his students. They discovered that as a trafficking survivor, Charleston had endured years of sexual exploitation as a teenager. Then, after her escape, she suffered the burden of a criminal record that got in the way of jobs, housing, and even her ability to visit her children's school.
I had about 177 arrests for prostitution in the state of New York alone, not counting the other states that I was trafficked in.
Hearing Monica's story, expungement seemed to be such a huge keystone to what freed her. Even leaving her trafficker, she still wasn't free because she was still burdened and chained down and manacled by her past.
Thanks to a New York State expungement law, Charleston eventually cleared her criminal record there.
I'm now able to vote, which I was not able to vote before. I can apply for places to live. Since my record has been expunged, I can be around children.
For several years now, Charleston, Ployd, and Smithfield students have traveled to the Virginia Capitol lobbying legislators for laws to fully clear the criminal records of those trafficked as children and young adults. According to the anti-trafficking organization Shared Hope, 40 states, including Virginia, have some kind of expungement law on the books, although no federal law exists, and many states need to bolster theirs. It's why Mr. Ployd's students are fired up.
Expungement helps get rid of that ball and chain that these human trafficking victims carry after they've gotten out of the situation.
There's something that can be done. Let's actually do something about it.
Last month, the students showed their appreciation for Charleston, writing her a song and giving gifts. It's a government lesson that's turned practical and personal, helping a new generation of students make a difference. Reporting in Smithfield, Virginia, Heather Sells, CBN News.
Coming up, the number of illegal crossings at the U.S. border with Mexico has plunged over the last year. We're going to have a report from Central America explaining why. The story when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep. as the world watches from the outside.
It's a big diplomatic tug of war here in the Middle East.
Go inside the story with Jerusalem Dateline.
Israeli archaeologists are talking about a discovery that could change the thinking about the Temple Mount.
Join CBN Jerusalem Bureau Chief Chris Mitchell and get the biblical perspective on the events shaping the world.
What starts in Israel then ends up going to other places.
Watch Jerusalem Dateline, Friday night at 9:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Young people, millennials, are flocking to church.
It's not an exaggeration to say that we love to meet them and that we love to know their stories.
Get the top political news and analysis from Washington on Faith Nation, tonight at 6 Eastern, only on the CBN News Channel.
Homeland Security officials say the number of illegal crossings at the southern border have dropped for the last 8 months, and they're down 90% over last year. CBN contributing correspondent Chuck Holton recently traveled to Central America to find out exactly why.
Mass chaos along the Mexico-Guatemala border as thousands of migrants faced off with Mexican National Guard troops. This standoff is a result of the Trump administration pressuring the Mexican government to stop these waves of illegal caravans before they get to the United States. But these Hondurans still plan on making it to the U.S. any way they can.
The goal is to get to the United States if God lets us. But if he gives us opportunity to work in Mexico, then we work in Mexico.
This is a repeat trip for many of these migrants who say this time Mexican authorities are taking a much stronger stand.
They want to cross by 50 and more because they are afraid. In social media are saying that they are deporting them.
So this is the river between Guatemala and Mexico. And as you can see, there are boats out there in the water that are crossing illegally, but this river is not very deep, and so you can actually see some people just waiting. It's almost impossible for the Mexican military to stop people from crossing illegally, and as a matter of fact, I was just talking to a couple of soldiers over there that said, we don't stop anybody from doing anything as far as crossing goes.
But the Mexican police are instead pursuing a different strategy.
This checkpoint just north of the Guatemalan border in Chiapas state shows that the Mexican police and military are working together to try to find these migrants that are trying to still sneak through here, even though they know things are getting more difficult at the northern border. And right here, they're searching a vehicle. They just pulled a couple of Guatemalans off of one of these vehicles a few moments ago, and they're here illegally, so they're going to get deported back to Guatemala in the morning.
And they're not just from Central America. Here in the border town of Tapachula, Mexico, there are thousands of migrants from as far away as Africa, Bangladesh, Pakistan, and Yemen. They're stuck here because of Mexico's version of its own wall, one made of bureaucracy.
Every time you go to immigration to make a paper, they give you a different appointment. An appointment for fingerprint, an appointment for picture, an appointment for everything. And sometime you go, they don't take you. Understand? They don't want you to be going up there.
The current situation has caused smuggling fees to skyrocket from about $2,500 a year ago to upwards of $10,000 today. And those who attempt to enter the U.S. and fail end up with a debt to the smugglers they may never be able to repay. Still, this Haitian migrant is relying on his faith to get him a piece of the American dream.
Donald Trump is the president. I respect the president, but let me tell you, God has a a plan for me. My faith will take me to America, and I think Donald Trump will never have the right even to touch me.
These Mexican troops, however, might beg to differ. From Tapachula, Mexico, I'm Chuck Holton for CBN News.
Still ahead, after making a splash in Hollywood at just 19, filmmaker Matty Rich traded films for gaming. See how he's now returning to the silver screen with a unique partnership and a bolder Christian faith. We've got that interview right after this.
On October 1st, 1961, history was made when a tiny station began transmitting the first signals of the Christian Broadcasting Network.
CBN, the Christian Broadcasting Network.
And now, a new era has begun with the all-new CBN News Channel.
Just moments ago, the Iron Dome intercepted an incoming rocket right on the Gaza border.
Administering in this area, spiritual warfare is definitely involved.
A 24/7 news network, bringing you the news you want from a source you can trust.
In Kenya, 40% of the medical services are actually provided by these Christian hospitals.
Let's talk about the economy.
Believers here are joining together to win people to Jesus Christ.
All your favorite shows now in one place. Go to CBNNewsChannel.com to find out how to get the CBN News Channel on your TV all day, every day. CBN News. Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
Life. It's meant to be lived fully. Jesus said it. I came to give you life. Life to the fullest. Life in your family. Life in your finances. Life in your body, mind, and spirit. Life in your everyday. At CBN.com, we're taking what Jesus said seriously. We're here to help you discover life. Life. Live it fully. CBN.com.
Fueled by his faith, filmmaker Matty Rich made a splash in Hollywood at just 19 years old. And after a more than 25-year break from movie making, he is back in a big way. He sits down in our Studio 5 with a look back and a look ahead.
We begin this movie maker's story here in Brooklyn, New York, where a young Matty Rich began making a name for himself in the early 90s with a film pulled from the pages of life around him.
You entered the filmmaking world at what age?
19.
19?
Yes, sir.
And for people who don't know, what film was that?
My first film was called Straight Outta Brooklyn.
Woo! Look at that fly car, man! Everybody out there's getting paid but us. But I'm gonna change this. I'm gonna change it.
Honey, what you gonna do? You gonna go out there and you gonna do something stupid?
And I was the winner of the Sundance Film Festival at 19. When I was 21, I directed a movie called The Inkwell. With a lot of people would know about that movie. With starred Jada Pinkett Smith, Lorenz Tate, a lot of other great stars.
Oh, I'd almost forgot what a great place this was. How long has it been? 5 years?
Mm-hmm. And it's your own fault, Brenda. You wouldn't even be here now if your house hadn't almost burned down.
Come on, girl.
I was the young flavor of the month in Hollywood. And I was blessed to have that opportunity.
At 19 and 21 to be making movies, where'd that come from? How?
God. People always ask me, how did you do it? How does someone that young have the capacity, the mental capacity? It truly was my upbringing, my family, my mom. My mother listened to me when I said I wanted to do this. At a teenage year, that she decided to give me her credit card, and so did my sister. And even though I may not have paid them back, they took the risk on me. They got their money back, but they took the risk. But that's like the foundation of kind of how I was raised. There's no one who can tell me that I can't do anything. if God gave me this gift, it's for me to share it to the world.
I can do all things.
Christ, who strengthens me.
More than 20 years after his last film, Matty Rich is making a splash of headlines in Hollywood again. Now directing a thriller starring rapper T.I. It's titled Caller 100. And there's yet another passion project still in the works.
It's called Cure, C-U-R-E, and it's the story of this African-American boy who was born with miraculous healing powers. Powers came from Christ. And I shot like a 10-minute teaser of this. And I wrote, directed, produced it, and also played the role of this father. I casted this kid. And I screened this at AFI, and the audience loved it.
How did you come to this particular story in terms of this being your third?
Well, I tell you that this story came to me sitting on an airplane, I kid you not, going from Paris to Hong Kong. And my mom would give me this Bible. And while I was on this plane by myself, going from one country to the next, I started thinking, what if there was this African-American boy who possessed a power that can heal everything that ails us as human beings? And he was given this gift by Christ. You wouldn't think that a young African-American kid who was grown up in a poverty-stricken neighborhood would have that kind of gift, because some people would overlook and think that they're this way or that way or whatever that prejudice may be. But what if your gift was living in a place that you would never go to? That's where it all came from.
In terms of your story and your faith story, you've been here at the Movie Guide Awards several years.
Yes.
Obviously a man of faith. Where'd you come to it?
Well, it all started from my granddad, who was a deacon in Harlem. And he was one of those granddads that, like, if you didn't go to church on Sunday, he would, like, drag you to church. You know, he made you go. And with his love, you know, is when I literally fell in love with Christ, is through my granddad and seeing him, you know, love Christ. And he was the one, when I was doing Straight Outta Brooklyn, he was my first investor. Out of anyone else, my grandfather, who's no longer here, was just a blue-collar worker in Queens, New York, decided, I'm going to invest in my grandson. And I shot a scene in the movie at his church in Harlem.
Now you can follow the rest of Matty Rich's story in future episodes of Studio 5. And tonight, actress Nancy Stafford joins us with a new romantic comedy in theaters just in time for Valentine's Day. Actors Jim Carrey, Tika Sumpter, and Ben Schwartz give us our first look at the film Sonic the Hedgehog. And we've got a powerful tribute to Black History Month from the National Park Service. You can catch all of that on Studio 5. It begins at 9:30 Eastern tonight. And of course, you can find that on the CBN News Channel. Coming up, it is the annual special night for children with special needs, Tim Tebow's Night to Shine, where they can all be kings and queens. We'll have a look at this year's event when we come back.
Life is better with a good night's sleep. Get your free DVD or booklet of Protect Your Sleep today.
I'm Ephraim Graham, and this is Studio 5. Cruise with me as I discover the good things happening in the world of music, sports, television, and movies.
The fact that Ryan Coogler was going to be directing the film, I knew that something special was going to happen.
We'll chat with artists at the forefront of entertainment and explore the connection between popular culture and faith.
I asked my pastor, I said, well, does that mean I'm supposed to be a preacher? He says, well, no, you already have a pulpit.
Watch Studio 5 Wednesday night at 9:30.
Remember for a moment what it was like to be a child. You believed every story you were told. You saw a world full of endless possibilities. What stories will the world's orphaned and at-risk children believe? We believe the Bible tells the only story truly worth believing. We believe that every child should have the opportunity to dream, the chance to take challenges and turn them into possibilities, the chance to stand on the promises of God, to recognize their place in the greatest story ever told. They have their whole lives ahead of them. Theirs is a world of endless possibilities. They are looking for a story to believe. We will tell them that story. Will you join us?
It has the power to influence weight loss, boost your immune system, and improve brain function.
We've seen an explosion of data on the role of the gut microbiome in health.
The free Build a Better Gut booklet reveals the latest information about the gut microbiome. You'll discover how your gut affects the rest of your health.
The gut microbiome has been linked to depression and cancer and heart disease.
Learn how to build a stronger, healthier gut.
The microbiome, if it's in good composition, are really protecting us all the time from more invasive things.
Get the Build a Better Gut booklet, free from the Christian Broadcasting Network. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut.
You need to make sure that your microbes are working with you, not against you.
And if you order online, you'll get immediate access to the Build a Better Gut series, a digital copy of the booklet, and related bonus material. Build a Better Gut today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com/buildabettergut for your free copy.
Check out the CBN News Daily Rundown podcast each weekday with me, Caitlin Burke. Click on the show tab at cbnnews.com where you can listen and subscribe.
More than 110,000 children with special needs were crowned kings and queens this past week. It was all part of a special event called Night to Shine. It's hosted by Tim Tebow's foundation together with more than 700 churches in 34 countries and 250,000 volunteers. The Night to Shine gave children the prom they always deserved.
We believe that when we're celebrating these kids and we're crowning them as the king or the queen of the prom, that's how the God of this universe looks at them every single day of their life.
And this was the 6th year the Tebow Foundation hosted the event, including cities like Rome, Paris, New York, LA, and as far away as Calcutta, India. Time now for your Wednesday word, and these are 2 words for you this morning, grace and mercy. Both are quite familiar, but so often we forget or we take them for granted. God promises to renew his grace and mercy with every new day. It is a gift. It is and on that gift is a price tag none of us actually could ever pay. With that word, I encourage you to make today a wonderful Wednesday indeed. That is a wrap for this edition of CBN NewsWatch. Remember, you can find more of our news programs on the CBN News Channel anytime. You can also find them online at cbnnews.com. We'd love to know what you think about the stories you've seen here today. Email us at the address there on your screen, newswatch@cbn.com. And of course, you can always reach out and touch us on Facebook, on Twitter, and Instagram as well. We certainly hope you'll join us again right here next time. Make it a wonderful Wednesday. We'll see you right back here, same time tomorrow. Goodbye, everybody, and God bless.